What a dark opening to a symphony. Beethoven's Fourth Symphony. What must the audience have been thinking that night in March 1807, hearing this music for the very first time? And for many of them, sitting there in this room in Prince Lobkowitz's house in Vienna, having memories of sitting in the same room only 3 years ago and listening to those trial performances of Beethoven's Eroica Symphony, this huge symphony. And hearing this dark opening, they must have thought, we're in for another one of those big, meaty rides. This is a year in which there is a great deal of political weight and political tragedy happening across Europe. In the year in which this symphony is composed, 1806, Britain has declared war against Prussia. Prussia has declared war against France, and most parts of Germany are now dominated by Napoleon and his troops. What else is happening in this year? In Britain, the Prime Minister, William Pitt the Younger, dies in office. And also in Vienna, this is the year when the composer Carl Maria von Weber accidentally drinks engraving acid from a wine bottle and ruins his singing voice for life permanently. So it seems that all this darkness might well be encoded into the symphony. But of course we know, don't we, that it's not a dark work at all. This is just the introduction. Because we know something else happened in 1806, that Beethoven receives this commission from Count Franz von Oppersdorf to compose a new symphony. And Oppersdorf is impressed with Beethoven's symphonies because he's recently heard a performance of not the Eroica Symphony, but Beethoven's Second Symphony. And Beethoven seems to respond in kind by offering him a new piece of music which is in that much lighter style. He has sketches for another symphony which is in the key of C minor. That can wait till later and becomes number 5. He also has sketches for another symphony in F major, and he puts those to one side as well. That can wait until symphony number 6. But for now he decides he's going to compose a brand new symphony from fresh ideas altogether. So what do we make of this slow introduction then? And one interpretation is that really it could be something of a joke of Beethoven's, that actually what he's doing, he's ramping up all of this pressure in order to just release it and burst the bubble with comic effect. If we end that slow introduction in this dark key of D minor, winding down on the dominant, before the bubble bursts with a surprise. And all that darkness and tragedy at the beginning is Beethoven, but he's wearing a mask, and he's saying now, you didn't really think I was going to compose a symphony like that, did you? Not here, not now, and certainly not for Oppersdorf. But what he's doing certainly is using the tricks that he's learned as an improviser at the piano. You know, when people used to hear Beethoven improvising in public, they said he could make people cry with one phrase and then laugh with the next. And by using these sorts of tricks to create this emotional journey, smashing together these contrasting emotions like this, he can open up the symphony to a much greater expressive palette. We'll take another example of the improvisations and the way in which Beethoven used to actually take a single theme and develop it, for example, in a set of variations, turning it from a slow march into a minuet or a dance or a lyrical aria. And here, this opening melody in broken thirds. Which later on, in the second subject of the first movement, becomes this lovely little cheeky pastoral melody. maybe those sketches for the Pastoral Symphony have been put to one side, but they're not completely out of sight. So we're looking forward perhaps to other pieces of music as well. And there's a sense as we go through this symphony that there are some really progressive ideas, and we think of the second movement with that very simple motif. And that dotted rhythm which becomes the heart of that movement, really, the heartbeat behind it all. So simple it can be played even by the timpani, and it is played by the timpani, and actually the timpani gets a solo at the end of the movement with that main melodic motif. What a wonderful moment in orchestral history for the timp to be playing the tune. And yet, of course, what Beethoven's writing at the same time as this, he's already working on his Opus 59 quartets, the Razumovsky quartets, the first of which has that theme in the cello, which is a signature for the whole movement. And also what he's going to do next from Opus 59 to this symphony, Opus 60, Opus 61, the violin concerto, which of course opens with the timpani playing that main motif, that rhythmic beating D, which is going to be the heartbeat of that movement too. But what of, amongst all this radical stuff, of the simple classical proportions that Beethoven has always written to? Where's the symmetry? Where's all those classical forms? Well, we go to the last movement, and the last movement gives us this great big raucous finale on an almost comic theme. And from this, Beethoven expands the whole movement to fill all that space. But at the end, we need to get back to that joke from the beginning, and he reverses the joke here, again, as a composer of variations, to think, well, I can take that theme and make it lyrical. And he gives it to the violin solo. And the bassoon. Then the second violins and the violas. And then we finish with the circle is complete, the joke is complete, the symphony is complete. Finished already? Say the Vienna audience, they're expecting another Eroica or something of that size. Well, yes, finished already, because this is a symphony of more slender proportions, but really one which shows Beethoven's great ambition to explore and push those boundaries of orchestral writing. And we'll see more of that, won't we, as his career develops further from here.